Hey everybody, this is Jackie from the Australian Incupod. You are tuning into part 1 of our 2-part interview with Mathew from Manuko, a Melbourne-based business that creates organic treats that are both healthy and delicious. In this episode, Mathew gives us insight into what prompted him to leave his corporate job, his life before starting Manuko, and the global mindset he has developed through backpacking around the world.
Hello and welcome to the Australian Incupod. I'm your host Nathan and this is my co-host Jackie. And today we have the founder of Manuko, Mathew. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So Mathew, can you tell us a bit about Manuko and how the idea came about?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess it kind of started when, maybe when I was born, really. I grew up on an organic farm in Victoria's Golden Valley. And so I was surrounded by organic agriculture from a young age, kind of grew up around that. And then, and then I never wanted to become a farmer. I knew how kind of challenging it is to be a farmer, seeing what my dad had to, kind of work he had to do, and it wasn't something I was naturally inclined to do. So I went off to study international business at uni, and then I landed like what was apparently the dream job in one of the biggest, like big top 4 companies in the world, the big 4. And I just knew from day one that wasn't for me, working in an office. So it really kind of threw me into a bit of a question, what am I going to do with my life? And but at the time, I also had this thing where I was like, I really wanted to see organic, healthy, delicious food out there available for people. And it just wasn't there. It's like, if it was healthy, it's boring. Or if it's delicious, it's not healthy. I was like, why can't it be both? You know, like having kind of a win-win situation where it's healthy and it tastes great. So when I was working at EY at that time, that's when I had the inspiration for the idea. I was 22. And I wrote it down, Manuko, like a true food revolution. That's what I called it. So that was kind of the original, the impulse or inspiration, the seed for the idea. And it was only years later when I started the business.
So how long were you working in EY for? And can you tell us a bit about your experience there?
Yeah, totally. Well, I was there for 9 months. It was an internship and I went through their graduate program. Fantastic company. I worked with some great people, very smart people. But yeah, I just knew, like I said, from day one, it just was not for me. It was like, you know, being a fish out of water. It just wasn't my kind of style. And at the end of the internship, I was offered a contract to continue after I finished my university degree to kind of have a career there. And so that was really like a destiny moment or like a fork in the road. You choose one or another path. And had a week to decide. And so I had this kind of contract there sitting there and I had some people saying, just sign it, like go on, you know, some family, like, you know, people lining up to work in these kinds of companies. And I just made a decision. This is not what I want to do with my life. And so, yeah, I went back to them and I'll never forget that kind of moment, just saying, you know, I'm not going to sign this. It's just, it's not acting in integrity with you guys and it's not acting in integrity with myself. So yeah, so I just...
Was it the area of work or was it the style of work? I mean, what exactly...
It's a good question.
You kind of desiring to have your own business, I guess.
Yeah, I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur, that's for sure. Even though it probably best sums up my kind of attitude to life. But I never forget having a conversation, I think, with my dad when I was at Ernest and Young and saying, it feels like 99% of me is not being utilised. So it's kind of like, I can be successful in a job, but it feels like I'm not really utilizing any of my talents or my potential. I'm just kind of fulfilling a task a little bit like a robot. So it's kind of like, I think it was the work, it was a style of work. I really love being creative and I also want to make a difference and have a meaningful difference in the areas of life that I care about. And working there, I just didn't see how this was actually making a difference in the world. Like, not that it doesn't, but it wasn't in the way that I wanted to. And yeah, it's just very different to the kind of person I am. So yeah, that was a pretty big decision, I think, at that point.
Were there any other friends that you had that kind of undertook the same path?
Great question. I got the same internship with one of my best friends from uni, and we had an absolute blast working the job together. Interestingly enough, he chose to stay on and I chose not to. So over the years afterwards, he went on to work in London, work in Geneva, do all these kind of incredible things while I was trying to figure out what I was doing with my life in a way.
Were there any moments of regret?
No, After I left EY and I finished my degree, I basically decided that up until that point, things were about people encouraging you to do things for your CV, and to get a career. And I was like, screw a CV, I want to live life. And so I just kind of left all of that. I'd finished my degree and I decided to go traveling. And I kind of went on a bit of an open ticket. Ended up being like 7 months traveling. I studied Kung Fu in China with some Shaolin monks.
No way.
I went hitchhiking across Sweden. I lived in a valley in Switzerland, living in a yurt there. It was kind of crazy. I met my now girlfriend. We've been together for 8 years. She's from Norway and she's absolutely incredible. So yeah, I had this amazing adventure. And then when I was about 26 or so, I kind of settled back in Melbourne. And that's kind of when I had a midlife crisis. My midlife crisis came quite early.
Yeah.
My friends had continued their careers, doing really well. They'd bought a house and things like that. And I was like, oh, what am I doing with my life? What have I done? Just been traveling and doing all this kind of stuff. The GFC in 2008, 2009 didn't even register for me. I was living so outside the normal world that just didn't, it just kind of, I bypassed that whole thing. So that's how kind of far out of the normal world I was. And so that had a bit of a crisis there for, I think, a few years before I kind of really committed to the path that I'm on now.
So did you start Manuko when you got back from traveling? Is that when you first got into it?
Yeah, so I was 22 when I had the idea. And then I was roughly maybe 27 when I kind of first started. And that was in a spare bedroom with pretty much no money or enough money to buy some ingredients with, and an agreement to rent a friend's commercial kitchen to make some products in. And I just kind of experimented with creating a little trail mix style of product, these kind of superfood bites. So mixing organic nuts, dates and cacao together to make these kind of delicious, healthy snacks. And that was kind of the first product. And yeah, I was roughly kind of 27, really kind of not knowing what I was doing, if I think back in hindsight, really not having a clue with the right business model and all the different aspects of food manufacturing and all these things that, I wasn't that experienced in. So, yeah, it's kind of how it started.
So did you have any prior experience with food production?
I had a little bit. So I worked for a really inspiring company in Melbourne called Loving Earth. Really inspired by what they were doing and by the guy that was had founded it. I worked there for maybe 2 or 3 months being a chocolate maker. And at that stage, I was still looking for a job, for a career in a way. And they're very much aligned with their values, very inspired by what they were doing. But then I realized again, I really want to be creating my own thing. I don't want to be so much working for somebody else's vision. But I had an insight there into food manufacturing. And I really saw how this can be done, how you can make an impact, how you can get products out there on a relatively kind of wide scale. So I just saw that as a kind of a feasible way to start. Yeah, that was kind of a good insight into that.
Do you do anything kind of outside Manuko right now? Because I imagine, you've traveled so much in your life. You definitely seem like somebody that needs a bit of adventure. Starting a business, does it kind of ground you in one place a bit?
Yes, it does, especially a food manufacturing business. I think I have a factory now and I'm pretty much grounded to a certain location. But business itself is an ongoing adventure in a way, because I'm constantly seeking new opportunities to distribute products in different places to go. And yeah, I study Kung Fu outside of it. I try and just have fun, go camping in different places around Victoria, go on weekend adventures, or week-long adventures. I'm planning to go traveling next year across Norway with my partner, just to go out to the fjords and up mountains and things like that.
Yeah, it's beautiful
for a month.
out there.
Yeah.
What would you say was the most? Well, which place was your favorite place to travel over that period?
Yeah. So many different good things about the different places. I love Mexico. Mexico was very, very wild, very adventurous. That was exciting. Guatemala was great. Really like Sweden. Just camping in all these different places. You can camp kind of anywhere for free. in those countries, which is pretty awesome. But
were there any healthy snacks you saw like abroad and you were like, wow, I would really like to incorporate that in Manuko?
Yeah, good question. I think like food has always been a big part of where I travel to, like knowing like Mexico, there's like fresh guacamole there, and Sweden's like really good with like healthy organic food as well. I think there's been inspiration from all these different parts of the world. Yeah, I think it's kind of inspired me, but the products I create now isn't kind of copying something. I don't see it as copying something that's already been done. It's trying to invent something new, but still modeled on things that are already out there as well. So taking inspiration from other things, but yeah, inventing something new is the idea.
So that was part 1 of our 2-part interview with Mathew from Manuko. Part 2 of this interview will be released within the week. Remember to subscribe, like and follow the Australian Incupod on our SoundCloud, iTunes and Facebook accounts to stay updated. And thanks for tuning in.